Elle, hi, welcome to the Female Startup Club podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited for you to be here. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year's to you too. Lots of new things happening this new year, right?
Did you have some time off? Did you do anything fun or different or new?
Yeah, so my fiance and I actually go to Hawaii every winter. That's where he grew up and where he was born.
Oh my
So
God.
got some sun. Didn't really take that much of a vacation, but definitely did some work out in the sun, which is really nice. How about you?
I'm like beyond jealous. I actually saw some of your videos and I was like, I wonder where she is in these videos because it looks like paradise. Um, I was with my family my family-in-law in Switzerland in the mountains. So also lots of nature, lots of snow, very beautiful, very quiet. Really enjoyed it. Time in nature is key.
Exactly, definitely. We're like the opposite. I went to somewhere really warm, you went to somewhere really cold, but we both had a good time.
I would love to go somewhere warm though, I can tell you. I would definitely switch that for warmth any day of the week. I'm a sunshine girl for sure.
Me too. I'm the same way.
Okay, so for people who might not know who you are just yet, can you give us a bit of an introduction? Tell us a bit about yourself. What do we need to know? And introduce your business.
Yeah. So my name is Elle Liu. I'm the founder of Eucalypso, a modern, sustainable eucalyptus bedding company. And so at Eucalypso, we make all of our bedding, which are sheets, pillowcases, duvet cover, you name it. And they're all made from 100% natural eucalyptus fibers, which is really great because it's super eco-friendly. But it's also really soft and cooling. So if you're like me and you're a hot sleeper or if you have sensitive skin, eucalyptus bedding is a really great solution for that. And so that's a little bit about what I do and our company.
So, two things. Firstly, love eucalyptus, love the smell of eucalyptus, miss eucalyptus in my life coming from Australia where it's everywhere. And two, you're speaking my language. I'm an overheater and I am always like, my God, I need sheets that are cool. I hear that as a pain point.
I know you would not believe how many people are actually hot sleepers. I'm the same way. And that was actually what had inspired me to start Eucalypso is because I wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be drenched in sweat and I have no idea what's happening. And I actually was talking to my dermatologist a little bit about it. And I was telling her, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I'm sweating, and I'm also getting these random breakouts. I don't know what's causing it. And she told me to look into my bedding. And the reason for that is because the way that cotton can be woven, it can trap sweat and bacteria, which causes things like night sweat and acne breakouts. Because if you think about it, going back to science class, heat rises, right? So your body releases heat when you're sleeping. And if you have something covering over you that's not moisture wicking, is not letting the heat through, it causes you to sleep hot.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. That's so interesting. When you kind of like discovered that point, like when your dermatologist like opened your eyes to this, did you immediately think, here's an opportunity to start a business? Or did you like go and think to yourself, oh, I should see if other people have this same problem? Or like, what was your thought process in that moment?
Yeah, it was definitely more of the latter. I was just kind of looking for a solution. To be quite honest with you, I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. You know how you talk to people and they're like, oh, I always knew I was going to start a business. Ever since I was a kid in school, I was selling lemonade. I'm so the opposite. I'm like, I'm perfectly fine working and getting a steady paycheck. So I was very much on my own personal problem. And I was kind of looking into what other people were doing, if there's any solutions out there. And that's kind of what started it. And it was totally not to start my own business at all, which is hilarious. It ended up being that way.
So what was the like moment that made you be like, oh my God, maybe I could start a business and like maybe I am going to be a business owner and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. So prior to founding Eucalypso, I was working in tech as a product manager and I really loved my job. It's so much fun. And so I had a lot of extra time after work. And my then boyfriend, now fiance, was telling me, he's like, why don't you do something with your time, right? Maybe you could, instead of watching Netflix, you might want to like channel it and do it away because you're so smart and There's a lot of things I like to work on. And I was like, you know what? I'll start an Etsy store because I was like, maybe I'll make jewelry or something. But then this is around the same time that I was experiencing these night sweats and all of these things. And so as I was Googling and looking to solutions, I was realizing, hey, there could be an opportunity here for someone else that may or may not be me. I just want to start my Etsy store, do something small. But the more I learned about it and the more I looked into what kind of options there are and kind of if there's any innovations in this space, and I love to innovate even in my tech job, I was thinking, hey, this is a challenge that I could potentially take on.
Wow, that's so cool. And if you're going to break down kind of like those early steps to actually getting started, to actually having a brand, what were the kinds of things you were doing to get it up and running?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that what is really amazing about this time is that we have access to all of these resources, Google, all of these things that previously people haven't. And so the first thing I did was kind of look into the problem, right? So I learned as much as I could about cotton bedding and its benefits and its detriments. And so some of the things I found were what we had just talked about, that it's not exactly moisture wicking. It can cause things like night sweats. It can trap bacteria, which causes breakouts. And so I thought that was a huge problem. But really, the thing that pushed me to personally tackle it is that I also discovered that cotton is one of the most dirty and thirsty crops. As in, it takes a lot of water, it takes a lot of pesticides to grow and to harvest, which is really not eco-friendly. And I try to live my life as eco-friendly as I can and try to make eco-conscious decisions. And so for me, that was a problem that was worth tackling. So I learned about all of these issues. And then I looked into alternatives. What other fabrics are there? What is out there? Is there anything that it currently exists? Can I, iterate upon that? And I didn't really find anything I loved. So I started Googling different mills and manufacturers I could talk to. Luckily, I was living in New York at the time. And so I was, close to the garment district, had access easily where I could go take a subway to meet with different textile companies. And so I got in contact with them and started reaching out and started learning more about the problem and the solutions.
And so at some point, you're obviously working a job, you're Googling at night trying to figure things out, you're trying to find a manufacturer. You obviously find someone that you are like able to work with. What are the kind of hurdles that you were facing during that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent probably over a year traveling to different places, talking to different mills and manufacturers. There were a few things that were really important to me. One is this eco-friendly aspect, right? As I had talked about, I wanted something that was way better than cotton and done in a way that's really sustainable and clean. And those kind of fabrics don't really, there's not a lot of that exists. Cotton has pretty much saturated the bedding space. And so to find a fabric that is super eco-friendly is kind of, you have to really dig for it. So that was my first criteria. And then the other ones were just the working conditions, right? I want to make sure that they treat their workers right, that things are being done in a way that's socially responsible that I agree with. And so I went all over. I went to Mexico, I went to Asia, all sorts of different countries. I went to Europe, Portugal. And it wasn't until I went to Austria and I met this mill there that I'm currently working with that I really found a good fit in terms of, all of these different aspects that I was talking about.
Wow. That's so cool. I don't know if I've met anyone before who produces their product in Austria. How interesting.
It's funny because since we make things from eucalyptus, when I say Austria, people always say, "Are you sure it's not Australia?"
Oh my God, I love that. And so, okay, so you're still hustling in your business, you find the mill, you launch the business while you're still working, right? You're still working full time at your job. I think at this point you're working at Amex, I think I read, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
You put the business online. How does it go? Like what's the early days like? How do you start getting the word out there?
Yeah. So what was really great was that I knew prior, as I was kind of exploring, that I wanted to start a business. I was in the process of sourcing fabrics and whatnot. And so at that time, I decided to grow my own Instagram because I figured that if I grew my own Instagram, I can at least get a following, get the word out there, and potentially move some of those people over to my brand's Instagram. And so having my own Instagram following, even though it was really small, was really helpful. And those actually were what really helped me get a lot of the word out there initially, is kind of leveraging my own network, leveraging people who were following me, and seeing if they could help me get the word out. And so I put my business on the internet. Nothing really happened, to be quite frank, which I was actually expecting. And then the two things I did initially was one, I set up a Google AdWords campaign because I wanted to make sure that there was someone who's looking for eucalyptus sheets, that they'd be able to find it because it didn't really exist out there at the time. And then the other thing was I leveraged my social network and try to get the word out there with my own circle. And I think within the second day, I actually got my first order was from someone who's totally anonymous. And that was super, super exciting because I was really not expecting that at all. And I was like, it's working, which is awesome.
What was that first year like? Like, were you still in your business? Sorry, were you still working at the Amex kind of side of things during that first full year?
Yes. So I've had my business for 3 years now, and I've had a full-time job until 3 months ago. So I've been working full time this whole time, right? And so the first year I was still working at Amex. What was really great about where I was working was that I was actually working in what we had called Open at the time, which was for to help support small businesses. And so the teams and the groups I was in was really helpful for supporting small businesses. And that's actually where I got a lot of my inspiration from, a lot of my support from. And I'm still really close with a lot of people I still work with at Amex to this day. But it was really hard to work a full time job and then to do something on the side, and also for people to kind of take what you're doing on the side seriously, which is a challenge I expect probably a lot of people face when they're working full time and also doing something full time. Sorry, on the side.
You're kind of blowing my mind because I read that you built the business to 7 figures, and I'm just kind of realizing that you've done that while working full time until 3 months ago, which I'm just like, wow, go you. That's amazing. Are you able to share kind of like in that first year, what kind of revenue you got to, and like at what point were you saying to yourself, I'll quit my real job and go full time into this? Like, was there a certain like milestone that you wanted to hit?
Yeah, totally. So I think like most people, I was planning quitting my job when my salary or what I was making at Eucalypso would match my salary, which is kind of really hard when you're working in tech because, as I'm sure we all know, a lot of tech salaries can be a little bit inflated. And so it was definitely a little bit more of an extra hurdle for me. So when I was working full time, I was just making sure that I was, using extra time I had outside of work to grow my business. And it was really important for me to keep my job because at one point I had to make the decision as to whether I want to self-fund and bootstrap or to raise money. And I thought for a long time about it. That's something that I still kind of think about. But I know that just to kick things off, I want to bootstrap for as much as I can, as long as I can. And so that was why it was really important for me to still have a full-time job so that I can still have that source of income so that I can keep following it into my business. And I've been doing it for, the past 3 years until finally my what I was earning did actually match my salary. But still at that point, I was still trying to decide, it is really important to have that steady income. And it wasn't until I think I felt super, super secure and comfortable that I decided to kind of take the leap.
And what was your thinking? You just mentioned a second ago around, your choice between bootstrapping and like fundraising and going out and raising money. What was your thinking around that? Why did you decide to choose the bootstrap model?
So that's something that I kind of have been thinking about for a while. The way that I approach it is that I started a business so that I can do the things that I want to do. I can take the business in whichever direction I want. I can, move as fast or as slow as I can, and I can have 100% ownership. That means that, if I want to take vacation, I can. If I want to release a new product, I can. And I don't really want anyone else to really kind of have a say in it, because otherwise for me that would feel like I'm working again. I don't want to work for anyone else. I want to work for myself. And so that's a big thing. And I know that when you're taking VC money, you essentially have stakeholders, which is a great thing because you're responsible to other people and that keeps you moving forward. But then on the downside is that you have stakeholders who may not agree with you. And then you have to kind of go with whatever they're saying. I also know that the other thing is that once you take money, you kind of have to keep taking money because you are accelerating your growth and you have to hit benchmarks. And for you to keep that growth, that, extremely fast growth, you have to keep taking money. You have to keep fundraising. And for me, that's something that's not appealing. I started a business so that I can run my business. I can create the products. I can do all of these things. I'm not interested in spending 90% of my time pitching and fundraising, and then the other 10% of my time managing other people to do. I think running a business is the most exciting part. And so those are kind of the two big factors that's played into my decision so far.
I think it's so important to like have that, serious self audit to be like, what are my goals? What do I want my life to look like? And like, there's such a thing, at the moment when you look at the media and you look at the landscape, there's such a celebration placed on people who raise money and, go down that pathway. And it's like, that's great. And it's great if that is the direction that you want to take and you want to grow really, really fast and you want stakeholders and all that kind of thing. But I think it's so important to audit who you are as a person, what your goals are, and make sure that you're sticking to that North Star and not getting swept up in the kind of way media portrays and puts a spotlight on raising capital.
Absolutely, dude. I'm really glad that you said that because I think that's definitely the case. We really celebrate, and you see all of these amazing entrepreneurs who raise so much money. But there's also a lot of people who run billion-dollar businesses who are not on the cover of Forbes or Times or anything like that, and they live quite a great life. And I think that's admirable as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's a very interesting landscape when you're kind of like, why are we celebrating the fact that you've just raised money? It should be, I don't know. It's weird. I feel torn about it sometimes. I'm like, it's a weird space at the moment.
I still feel torn about it as well.
I want to go back to, I kind of like moved more into money, but I want to kind of go back to marketing to understand your sort of approach to growth and marketing over the last 3 years. Obviously, in the beginning, you said that you had your own personal network and you had your own Instagram that you'd built and you're kind of following there. And then you had set up the keywords on Google. But how do you get from that to where you are now? Like, what are the key kind of things that you did that grew the business and allowed you to quit your job, go into this full time and build a profitable business?
The way I think about it, I think marketing is kind of at the backbone of any business that is growth. And so for me, making sure that I have a wide angle lens at marketing is really important. Luckily, coming from Amex, I had a lot of really great marketing background. And so I was able to see how we run the marketing campaigns of other small businesses that we worked with. And so one of the things that I really focused was this idea of omni-channel marketing, which is very hot these days. But back, a few years ago, it was kind of not so much talked about, I would say. And that's the idea that you are essentially going to hit marketing at every angle, right? And so for me, just straight off the bat, I knew that's exactly what I needed to do, even if I was spending very little amount of money. And so that means that paid social, organic social, Google AdWords, making sure that, even getting podcast ads and getting PR, all of those things that you can still do on a shoestring budget, because I know that once they all come together, it kind of amplifies the effect of marketing. And so I told you that I had started some Google AdWords campaign, making sure I was leveraging my Instagram. And then immediately I started spending money on social ads, on email, making sure that I cover kind of the entire funnel. And so I kind of moved very quickly into marketing. As soon as I had all of my everything in a row, I just kind of moved into marketing immediately and hit every channel that I could.
And when you look at your kind of channel mix now, what are the biggest revenue drivers for you kind of in the last 12 months?
Yeah, for me, that would be kind of everything that's bottom of the funnel. So it's going to be email marketing and Google Ads, because Those are people who have expressed intent. They've either looked up your keyword or they've signed up for your email list. And I think they're kind of, in a way, the lowest hanging fruits. They're always going to be the people who come back and support and spend the most when you reach out to them. I think now there's so much focus on kind of brand awareness, right? I think marketing on Pinterest and on Instagram and on TikTok is so hot. And obviously that's super important. But in terms of the impact of your money, I still think that bottom of the funnel, making sure you're really taking care of those return customers, of people who's expressed interest, is so important.
Absolutely. Something else I noticed about your brand when I was Googling you is that you have a lot of like on the first few pages of Google, you're on a lot of review sites. Has that been a specific strategy, or is that something specific to your category to like that's really important?
Yeah, it's definitely in the bedding and mattress space. That's a big thing. It's because I think, as opposed to a lot of other products, with bedding and with mattress, you really trust what other people are saying in terms of how it feels when you're, especially when you're sleeping in it, right? And what something is like over time, especially if you're selling online. And so I think that really tapping into those reviews and the review sites is ultra important, because you're essentially getting feedback from other people and getting a sense of what something is like. And I think with our product in specific, with Eucalypso, because it feels very different from cotton, it has more of a silkier texture, it's cool to the touch. Hearing other people say that is extremely validating, especially when you're looking at something online and you can't feel it yourself.
100%. Yeah, I think about my own customer behavior, and it's definitely needing that kind of like review or recommendation. Tactically speaking, though, how does one do that? Like if there's a small business owner or an entrepreneur early on in the journey and they're like, oh, my product would suit that kind of strategy, what do you actually do? How do you get your kind of product reviewed on all those different sites?
I think that's where PR plays a huge part. For me, initially, I did all of my PR myself. And luckily, I think we created enough buzz that we had people reach out to us and ask to review our product, which was really lucky, because PR is not my strong suit, and I'll tell you that right now. Reaching out to other people and following up is so time consuming, and it is so hard for me to do. And that's why there's people out there who's great at it. But I would suggest, when you're starting out, if you have time, doing your own PR is so important. The reason for that is because, one, it allows you to tell your story and to figure out how to tell your story in a way that's marketable. And that's invaluable to your brand experience. And the other thing is just making sure that you are able to kind of sell your product and know how to reach out and do PR. I think, as a business owner, knowing how to do a little bit of everything is so important. And so for me, I would just spend 3 or 4 hours every day reaching out to people in PR and asking them to review the product and trying to get feedback.
And so like gifting them product and then waiting for the review if they're happy to do that, like not a paid kind of placement. Is that what you mean?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
And for you, like how do you approach, obviously you have a bit of a higher price point product. It's not cheap to necessarily, like for you to be able to gift at scale. How do you approach your kind of gifting and influencer marketing and seeding on something that's a bit of a higher ticket item?
I'm glad that you're asking that question, because that is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. As opposed to a lot of other smaller products like skincare or things like that, where it's so easy to ship, it's so easy to get it out, our cost of product is extremely high, and the cost of shipping is really high. Our sheet sets weigh about 6 pounds, and it's huge. And so for us, we always try to lead with a smaller sample product, right? So for us, our pillowcases is one of our best sellers, and it's the exact same product as our sheet set. And so if we're not sure if the editor or the reviewer is going to be able to, do something, we'll always lead with a pillowcase set. And then usually if it's kind of a bigger brand, or if they really express intent, like, hey, I'm going to take photos and I really want to review this, we'll send out the entire sheet set itself.
Yeah, that's so clever. And I feel like as well for pillowcases, you also have that easy opportunity to monogram or customize to still make it special, but keeping it on the smaller side, not heavy, easy to ship.
Exactly. Yeah, you totally hit the nail on the head.
I love that. Gosh. What are some of the hard things about this as a category and industry besides the heavy weight and the shipping?
I was actually just talking about this with someone the other day. I think betting, kind of going back to what we were saying about the high price point, right? It's extremely costly to make, not only because we're using the finest fibers and most high quality product, but also because the way that we decided to make it so sustainably, it's expensive, it's costly to do things sustainably. And also with our sheet sets, we have to order quite a lot of it. So our MOQ, our minimum order quantity, is extremely high. And so if you think about it, say you're selling a pencil or something, right? If you have to order 1,000 pencils and say the pencils are $1 each, your startup cost is $1,000. With our sheet set, that's a huge multiplier. So if I have to get 1,000 sheet sets, which most manufacturers wouldn't even do 1,000 because that's extremely low, or MOQs we're usually looking at 10,000 or so, you need an extremely high startup cost. And so everything kind of gets grows exponentially. The cost of storing something so big is expensive. The cost of shipping is expensive. And so it takes a lot of capital cost. And that's something that I did not realize going into this. Don't forget, I wanted to start an Etsy store. I was trying to sell like little jewelry. So to go from that to selling in this really, really competitive space where everyone has, VC funding, it's extremely competitive, I would say.
I didn't actually ask you, how did you fund like the kind of first order and get yourself to launch in the beginning? And how much capital did you need to invest?
Yeah, so I had started um, by just taking out all the money in my own bank account. And then my parents both put in a little bit of their own money, but I probably put in like 80% of it. And I think all in, it was probably about 100K for me to start. And that's also including some of the startup costs.
From Etsy store to 100K.
I know, exactly, right? And that's including like the cost of raw materials and storage and all the marketing and everything as well.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. My goodness, from Etsy to that. I love it.
I know, I know.
Got
I
to you
guess
got
I
to
got to
dive
do
in
it
deep
big.
though. Yeah. If you're going to do it, you
Exactly.
better do it well.
Yeah.
What are some of the fun things that you can shout about that are upcoming this year in 2022? What are you focused on? What's on the cards that you can tell us?
Yeah, so lots of very exciting things. So we're releasing some new product. We're going to be, I guess I'll let you know now, maybe it'll be launched by the time this airs, but we're going to be releasing an eye mask, which you have been asking for a long time. Because it's super great on the skin, it's cooling, it's soft. So that's really wonderful. We've been working on that forever. And then also releasing some new products as well and some new colors. Our customers are always asking us for new colors and things like that. And so we're finally getting around to doing that.
Oh my God, fun. What color? Or colors, I should say.
We're actually still in the process, a little bit of a secret,
Okay, okay. I'll keep
but
my
you'll,
eyes peeled.
yeah, I'll let you know in advance, yeah.
I love that. Two-part question before we get into the sixth quick question that we do at the end. First part is, what's the best advice you were ever given about starting a business or building a business? Second part, what's the worst advice that you've been given?
Wow. Okay. So I think the best advice is that you need to spend money to make money, which I think a lot of people forget, especially when you start something from the beginning. And especially if you're bootstrapping it, you kind of really hold on to that money very closely, right? You want to do everything on a shoestring budget, but you do realize that, there's a multiplier on everything. And so when you start actually putting out money, you go from spending $10 to $100 to $1,000 on ads, you start to see the return on that. And I think that's super important. And that it seems so easy and simple when you think about it, but it's something that I think a lot of people have a hard time, especially me, coming around to it mentally. And I think the worst advice is that if your friends and family don't like support you or don't go into and purchase your product, that is not a good product or it's not a viable product. I think that depending on what you're selling, it may not be for everyone, right? And I think a lot of people maybe have a really hard time kind of understanding why you're doing the things that you do. I think people need to see success to kind of support in a lot of times. And so even if, you know, off the bat, you're like, hey guys, I'm doing this. Do you want to buy it? And they're either like, why are you doing this? Or like, no, I don't want to buy it. That doesn't mean that you're not going to succeed or that your product's not good. I think there's a lot of other people out there. There's an entire market for things that you're potentially going to start.
Yeah, that's key. I really love that you said that. I think that's like, you can't let that your what am I trying to say? Your immediate circle dictate what you want to do. You've got to like think broader. You've got to think about like the problem at hand, and don't let those kind of like close people to you dictate what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what you're saying. Yes.
I love that. Both really great worst case, best case advice. Perfect. We are up to the 6 quick questions part of the episode. I ask these at the end of every episode. Some of them we might have covered, some of them we might not have, but I ask them all the same. So question number 1 is, what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so my why is that I want to inspire people to make more eco-conscious decisions in the things that they're purchasing, especially when it comes to sleep and wellness, right? I think people take their sleep so seriously, they take their wellness so seriously, and to combine that by purchasing things that are more sustainable, that are good for you, I think can have a huge benefit to you, your life, as well as the environment. And so for me, I want to keep making products, whether that's with Eucalypso or outside Eucalypso, that's eco-friendly. That's kind of my North Star, is to make things that are sustainable.
I love that. Question number 2 is, what has been the number 1 marketing moment so far?
Ooh, the number one marketing moment. So I think our number one marketing moment, we were featured on HGTV, who had dedicated an entire article to us. And that, I was not expecting that at all. They were super nice about it and randomly reached out to me. And it had actually brought a lot of attention, not only to Eucalypso, but the idea of sustainable bedding and eucalyptus bedding. So that was super exciting. And I think we had a lot of great customers who came through that. The one thing that I'll touch upon here is that actually most of our customers are not here because we sell eco-friendly product. They're here because they're looking for a solution to night sweats or acne breakouts. And so to have that kind of shining moment in the sustainability space, I think is always really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. It's like they come because of this problem, but then the sustainability factor is there as well. And it like makes everyone feel really good about their choice and like keeps them coming back, talking about it. It's like a talkability moment. I love that. That's very cool.
Exactly.
I've actually heard that before, is like, I don't remember who was telling me, but they were saying that people like to think that sustainability is like where their purchase power is and like that's why they buy something. But actually it's not. It's the secondary thing. And it's like, there's always something actually ahead of that, the problem, I guess. And then sustainability comes, but people like to think that they lead with sustainability, but in like actual reality, they don't, which I think is interesting.
Totally. That, and to actually, to actually complement that, I also heard that people who try to shop sustainable or like sustainable shoppers are they take longer to make a purchase. So apparently they usually come into your website like 5 to 8 times before they make a purchase. Unlike, you know, I guess non eco-friendly shopper. I don't know what they're called. But I just thought that was interesting as well, right? It takes them much longer to make a decision about what they're purchasing.
I guess they need to make a really educated decision that feels very like, you know, confirmed sustainable brand.
100%. Yeah.
Very cool. Question number 3 is, what's your go-to business resource when it comes to book, podcast, or newsletter?
Yeah, my go-to. So I have a few that I've been listening. So I try to listen to a lot of podcasts. I love podcasts because I don't have a mentor and I don't really have like a huge network of entrepreneurs. And so when I listen to podcasts like yours, I feel like I know all these people. They always give such great advice. So I listen to your podcast, obviously. I love How I Built This by Gary Raz. I think that's just so fun to listen to always. And then I also listen to the Modern Retail podcast. I think those are probably my three like go-to when it comes to the entrepreneurship space.
Oh, I feel so honored.
I think they just all bring different things to the table of founders at different levels and experience, which I really like. And then I try to read a lot of books, also kind of in the same space. I know I'm not very diversified, but I've actually recently been reading this book by this kind of personal hero of mine. Her name's Jamie Schmidt, and she started Schmidt's Naturals, and ended up selling her company for like 9 figures or something. And so I've been loving that book. I just kind of pick up whichever people who inspire me and see what they're up to and read what they're reading.
Very cool. I love that. I'm going to check out her story. I don't know that one. Question number 4 is, how do you win the day? What are your AM or PM rituals and habits that keep you feeling happy and motivated and successful?
Well, the first thing is I sleep on my Eucalypso sheets, so it makes me wake up extra refreshed.
Of
Plug for
course.
myself. No, I'm just kidding. But it does feel really great. The way I usually start the day is I always start the day by writing what I need to do that day. So I have a huge list. I actually have it in front of me. I always have like a million things on my list and like things to do. And I just start by crossing it off and start like tackling the easiest things to do. So for me, list making is a huge thing. And then, I get my morning tea and I just kind of try to get everything I can out of the way in the morning. And at night, I always take some time to unwind. I try to read these books that I've been trying to get more into and just really unplug from cell phone and anything like that.
Love that. I actually just started using, I don't know if you've heard of it, the Productivity Planner by Intelligent Change. They're the people who do the 5-minute journal. And it's like, for people who like to take lists, but like they break it down into more like, core priorities, because I find like sometimes I just get swept up in so much of the like admin and emails and things like that I like
Totally, yeah.
put on the back burner the most important thing that's going to take the longest. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, I didn't do that thing that I just should have done first. So it's like helping me prioritize and like be more productive on the things that like really shift the needle and move me forward. And so far I'm loving it. Love that.
I'm the exact same way. I also love how we both have ours handy, like just in case, we need to stay on track. Sometimes I'll be like downstairs or upstairs and I'm like, oh my gosh, where's my list? What am I supposed to be working on?
I love that. Question number 5. What is the most important spend of $1 for you right now in the business?
Ooh, the most important spend of $1. I'm going to go back to what I was talking about before with the bottom of the funnel marketing. I think that's always the most impactful is when you have people who's demonstrated their interest in your product, you want to hear more about it. So for me, that's kind of email marketing and just, making sure that we're retargeting marketing and anything like that. Because I think when it's really important to reach out to people who's demonstrated interest, right? They were saying how it takes someone 8 times seeing your name or your product for it to kind of really like click in their head. And so if you think about that, it's taken all of these people so many times of seeing your name or your product that they've actually showed interest. And that's kind of one of the nicest compliment a customer can pay you. The least you can do is to spend your dollar and make sure that you're really taking care of them.
I love that so much. That is so nice. Please take care of your customers. I agree. I'm with you. Question number 6, last question, is what's been a major fail that you can share and how did you deal with it?
A major fail. That's a good question. I feel like I need to think about that. So I think a major fail for us. Oh, actually,
You have one. It's come to
yes,
mind.
it's actually very top of mind. So I am very hands-on. I design all the product myself. I do everything myself essentially. And for me, a huge part of betting is the color, and our customers take our color selections very, very seriously. And so we've gotten requests for a pink color, like a cute pink color forever. And I'm not the biggest fan of pink bedding. For me, it's just like, cutesy girl room. I like much more neutral, kind of sophisticated colorways. Anyway, so I was like, instead of doing a pink, we'll do kind of like a pink beige mix, because I like beige, pinky beige, that's kind of cute. So it's kind of a dual tone color In sunlight, it's much more of a beige, but in darker lights, it's kind of a pink. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was so cute. Our customers hated it. They are like, I don't get this color. This is why did I get beige? I ordered pink. Why did I get pink? This is like way too beigey. Like all of these questions. And so we've been in the process of trying to kind of like come out of this color for a while now because of my mistake. So I guess the lesson learned is to always do your market research, make sure that you're testing. I think I just got way too excited with this color. So now we've released a separate beige and a separate actual pink that we call whisper pink. And people are much happier.
Do people love the whisper pink?
They do. They really do. They are like, this is the color I'm looking for. But it's so funny because now that
Listen to your
kind
customer.
of, yeah, but now that we kind of sold out of this like pinky beige color that we've had, I have so many customers reaching out and be like, I love that color. Where can I get it? I'm like, no,
It's
this
not
is not
coming
happening.
back. It's not
No.
coming back.
Exactly.
That is so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge mistake.
At least there wasn't a lot of like wastage where you just couldn't sell through it and it was going to be like, you know, I don't know, had no life.
Totally. Yeah. At least we sold out through it. But that money spent on those inventory probably could have gone to better things.
Got it. So the learning here is listen to your customer and test.
Exactly. And think about where you're spending your money.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Elle, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey so far with Eucalypso. I'm so excited to see your new colors that are coming out, and please keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Doom. Thank you for having me.